Hello and welcome to Teacher's Corner. I'm Teacher Kirby, and today I'm going to be continuing the series of the Specialization tree reviews. Today I'm going to be doing Command Officer. Command Officer does have skills for both ground and space. As with Intelligence, I will be focusing on the space side of things. Since I am not an expert in ground, I will let people who know a bit more than I do about that communicate those. I did want to point out before we get into the nitty-gritty of what each point gets you that when you are running command, if you look over here on the left hand side or right hand side, you'll notice it says when this is active, okay, you will gain a 5% increase to maximum hit points and maximum hull capacity. This bonus increases by a small amount for each point spent in specialization. You must have at least 1 point spent in the specialization to gain this bonus. So you get a little extra tankiness, a little extra hull capacity while you're in space if you have command either as primary or secondary. Okay. So command is actually quite an interesting tree. Primarily, people who run command are dedicated torpedo boats. Now when I say that, I don't mean that they have 1 torpedo and 7 energy weapons on an 8-weapon ship. I mean they have their primary source of damage is torpedoes. That is what they do. So you'll notice for this one I am using as my example my Odin assisted torpedo build. So I have my primary damage dealers in the front for rep torpedoes, and I have some energy weapons which are meant to continue off or to complete sets and give me some set bonuses. Okay, so I do have some energy weapons on the aft, and that's going to be important as we look in the command skill tree. You'll see why this comes in handy. Alright, so getting into the nitty-gritty. So we have scan for weakness. So scan for weakness, your energy weapons gain a chance to expose enemy targets. Your torpedo weapons will deal extra penetration, armor penetration, okay, of enemies that are exposed by this ability. So what this is saying is your energy weapons grant the expose. So you have to have energy weapons in order to even get this, but only your torpedoes are able to take advantage of it. Okay, so your energy weapons are not going to gain anything extra from this. So if you don't use torpedoes, this is a completely useless skill for you. Okay, this is why torpedo boats are usually the ones that use this. Alright, and you'll also notice it says it's quite a bit of armor penetration at 50. Plus 50 armor penetration. To put that in perspective, okay, if we look at the space skill tree here, the extra hull penetration, which is the same thing, only gives at 3 points plus 10. Okay, if you look in, traits, if you look in the traits, the enhanced armor penetration, let me find it here. Enhanced armor penetration skill only gives 5%. So having something that gives 50% armor penetration for its effect is absolutely, plus 50 armor penetration is absolutely huge. Okay, so that is a lot of extra armor pen. Okay, now it is a 1% chance, which means it's a pretty low percent chance. You have to fire 100 shots, and 1 will give the expose. Okay, so it will take a little bit of work to get there, but will make a big difference when you notice it. And of course, coming down here, going from left to right, scan for weakness 2, same skill, energy weapons, gain a chance to expose enemy targets. Torpedoes take advantage of it. You'll notice the chance is different. It's now 2% chance. This brings us closer to our normal proc rate that we see of 2.5%. Most things give us a 2.5% chance of it happening. So this brings it up to about parity with that. So this is a good thing. And again, 50 armor penetration, huge numbers. Okay. Moving on to the right, Tachyon Charges. So now your torpedoes, your energy weapons give you an expose effect. Your torpedoes exploit that expose effect. So now this adds to those exploit attacks that your torpedoes are going to get. Your torpedo exploit attacks will apply an instant drain to the nearest facing of any exposed target's shields, in addition to their increased damage. So now not only is it increased damage, now it's going to drain 1,200 shields from your exposed targets. This is huge for torpedoes. One of the biggest enemy of torpedoes are shields. Shields negate a lot of torpedo damage, and so if you can do something to get the shields down, that's going to help your torpedoes once you can get those shields down. So this is a very good thing to have on a dedicated torpedo boat. Alright. Moving along, we have violent detonation. So now this is going to take advantage of the openings created by exposed weakness. Okay. By scan for weakness and exposing weaknesses. Okay. Your torpedo exploits now ignore a greater amount of an exposed foe's damage resistance. So what this means is every time you manage to successfully exploit, every time you manage to expose and then exploit with your torpedoes, they're going to have a greater armor penetration. And that now goes up to 75 with violent detonation 1. So with scan weakness, we're up to 50 already. Now we get another 25 on top of that. So now we're at 75 every time we manage to land a successful exploit. Okay. And once I get to violent detonation 2, now you're looking at 100. Okay. This is absolutely huge for torpedo boats, and this is why it is definitely recommended if you're going to run a torpedo boat similar to the one that I'm on here, then you're going to run command at the very least as a secondary. Okay? We'll get into more about that choice later. Alright, and again, you notice all of these, you need to have torpedoes to make it effective. So if you are someone who runs only energy weapons, command is definitely not for you. If you're someone who runs a mix, who runs mostly energy weapons and maybe 1 or 2 torpedoes, you might want to consider it. But as a secondary, if you're a primary torp boat like this tune is, then there's some debate as to whether primary or secondary. We'll get onto that later. Now, if you've been around when the command trees or when the specialization trees first came out, you may remember that a lot of people said command is lagging out the server, command tree is lagging out the server, don't use command tree. This right here is why. Okay. This skill, Superfluous Submittals, because it monitors the health of your teammates constantly. It was sending out so many checks of your teammates' health that it was bogging down the calculations on the server, and so it was causing a bunch of lag. Okay, the Cryptic has gone behind the scenes and fixed how this works so that it does work without causing huge amounts of lag now. So what it does, and this does stack with other command officers in the team, so if other people are running command, you're going to get a bigger bonus. Get plus 2% bonus all damage per teammate above 95% health or hull capacity. Okay, so if your teammates are all at full health, you get a little bit of extra damage. up to 10% extra damage, which is a nice little bonus. Okay, so nothing to sneeze at, but thankfully this has been fixed, so you don't have to worry that you're going to be logging out the server anytime if you have this either as a primary or secondary specialization tree anymore. Okay, moving right along, energy signature flux. Okay, this gives an incoming shield heal, or sorry, any incoming shield healing will grant you a short burst of defense. Okay, meaning that you're going to be harder to hit. Alright, this is, especially torpedo boats tend to gain a lot of threat. Has to do with the way threat is calculated and the way torpedoes work, but they gain a lot of threat, so things tend to shoot at you more. So anything that you can do to boost your defense is a good thing. So whenever you heal yourself with shields, you'll get a little bit of extra defense, making it harder for you to be hit. And life sign flux, same thing on the ground. Okay, moving right along, restoration harmonics. Okay, you and all nearby teammates receive additional hull restoration from all friendly sources. Okay, so this means pets, teammates, anything that is considered an ally, including yourself, will give you an extra 5% hull healing. Now this does stack up to 5 stacks. Okay, so you can get plus 25% hull healing extra. So that means your hull, when you are hit and your hull depletes, now your hull will recover faster. Alright, and then restoration's energy, same thing on the ground. Alright, now that is the first 2 tiers. So if you chose command as secondary, those would be the only things available to you. Even if that is all you choose, as you can see, just the first tier is huge for torp boats. Okay, is very, very helpful for torp boats. Alright, tier 3. Now this can be helpful as well. Achilles Heel. Landing a critical hit on a foe will temporarily expose them to additional damage, weakening their resistances. So basically what it's saying is, when you land a critical hit, you get an extra damage resistance debuff to your enemy. This is kind of like having an extra attack pattern beta. In this case, with 25, it's similar to an attack pattern beta 1. Okay? Which is a pretty good deal. Okay? Especially if you combine this with the Science Ultimate. The Science Ultimate, you may recall, sets your critical chance at 50% for a 30-second duration. Okay? So if you can time these right to where you have Achilles Heel active at the same time as your Science Ultimate is active, you can really take advantage of a number of good things and get a good amount of damage resistance negated from your enemy so that your torpedoes will hit harder. Okay, so we have Achilles Heel 1. There are 3 levels of Achilles Heel. Each one does exactly the same thing. The difference in the 3 are duration. Achilles Heel 1 lasts for 5 seconds. Achilles Heel 2 lasts for 8 seconds. And Achilles Heel 3 lasts for 10 seconds. Okay, on the other side of the tree, left side, we have Debilitating Weakness 1. So this weakens your foes afflicted by your Achilles Heel debuff. So in other words, they have to be under the effects of Achilles Heel. It reduces the strength of their outgoing damage. So what this means is I lob a bunch of torpedoes at, say, the tactical cube at the end of ISA, and Achilles Heel gets put on it. Okay, so its damage resistance is less, so we can hit it harder. Well, in addition, now it's not going to be able to do as much damage to us. Its outgoing damage is going to be reduced by 20%. Okay, as long as it's under the effects of Achilles Heel. Now if I go down to Debilitating Weakness 2, now that's doubled to 40%. So basically your target loses almost half of its damage generating capability when it's hit with Achilles Heel. Great thing. Not bad. You will notice a difference. Okay. Alright. And Tier 4, Extrovert. Okay. You thrive in the company of other captains, learning from their actions and gaining additional experience simply by being teamed with them. This bonus grows larger for each player currently on your team, not bridge officers. So they specifically say this is not a bonus that it counts bridge officers as part of your team. Okay. So if you're on the ground thinking, oh, I'm going to get a whole bunch of extra experience because of this, no. Only members on your team. So in other words, it maxes at 4 teammates because you can only have a team of 5. Okay. 2.5% specialization XP and Starship Mastery XP per player on team, 10% max. So even if you somehow manage to get more than 4 other players on your team, you're only going to get a 10% bonus from this. Really, XP is okay. Extra XP is nice, but you're really not going to notice this. Okay, to be honest. So I wouldn't worry about, oh, I have to have Extrovert, I have to run it as my primary so I can have Extrovert, because it's really not going to be that much of a difference. You're not going to notice it. Okay. Boost Morale. Boost Morale 1. Inspirational Burst of Motivation grants you and all teammates an ongoing removal of all forms of debuffs and control effects for a short duration. It is important to note that Cryptic did just change how this works, so now it is only available to be used while you have a debuff or a control effect active on you. During other times it will be grayed out. I believe it's also changed. It was also one of the ones that is now only activatable by one person on the team, and if somebody activates it, it locks out the others for the duration of the effect. Okay. So this works. Boost Morale does this removal of all debuffs and control effects for 4 seconds. So this means anything that gives you a damage resistance debuff that takes away your damage resistance, or anything that controls you, like Gravity Well, Tractor Beam repulsors. You will be immune to those things for the duration of the Boost Morale buff. Boost Morale 2, now most things, when it has a second skill, it boosts the stats in some way. Either it gives you a greater resistance or a greater armor penetration, as in the case of violent detonations, or it gives you or it increases the duration, like with Achilles Heel. This one is interesting. It doesn't increase anything. What it does is it actually reduces the cooldown. You'll notice it says it has a 90-second cooldown for Boost Morale 1. Boost Morale 2, the exact same stats, the exact same duration, but only a 60-second cooldown. So this means instead of being able to activate it once every minute and a half, you can now activate it once every minute. Okay? Okay, and as with all skill trees, this does have a trait or a ship trait that goes along with it. In this case, the ship trait that goes with this is, let me find it, command frequency. When you completely spec out the command tree or fill in the command tree, it's improved command frequency. Okay, this is actually a pretty good trait. A ship trait, it is a ship trait, so it would go under here under Starship Traits. It says your advanced command training has granted you access to special communications frequencies that can be used to more readily call for assistance in battle. All ranks of fleet support no longer have a low hull requirement to be triggered. So, in other words, fleet support, this is the icon for it for KDF, usually you have to have 50% hull or less in order to be able to call your fleet support, where you can summon, I believe it's 3 ships, and they will fight for you. And okay, so what this is saying is, if you have command frequency slotted as a starship trait, it removes that low hull requirement. That means that you can call them in anytime you darn well please. Okay, you don't have to be injured, you don't have to be dying. You can call them in whenever you want. So that means you can think of them differently and strategically call them in at places where you can maximize your DPS. So if that's what you're going for, this is actually quite nice. Okay. It also says, and they can be used more frequently. Okay. Normally this has a 15-minute cooldown. Okay. It's a really long time. And you have to be in space in order for that cooldown to be effective, to be ticking down. So what this is saying is, not only does it remove the low health, so you can call them whenever you choose. Okay, the cooldown is reduced by 5 minutes. So it normally starts out at 15 minutes. So take away 5 minutes from that, 10 minutes. So that means once every 10 minutes you can call your fleet support. Okay. Now, improved command frequency lowers it by another 5 minutes, meaning that now you can call them with improved command frequency, you can call them once every 5 minutes. So now it's only a 5-minute wait. It puts it in parity with Nimbus Pirate Distress Call. Okay. And the Delta Recruit call as well. So, and again, as with Pedal to the Metal from the pilot tree, it is a ship trait. You do not have to have command slotted in order to use the ship trait. You just have to have spent the points in the command tree in order to unlock the ship trait. Once you have that ship trait unlocked, you can use it whether you're running command as as either a primary or secondary, or not at all. Okay. So now I run on my Torp boats, I run command as primary because I do like to take advantage of Achilles Heel. I think it is worth it. Others argue that the flanking from the intelligence tree, you may remember, where is it? Space flanking 2, 10% all damage when hitting enemy's rear arc, is simply too good to pass up. And so others will run intel as their primary with command as a secondary on the torpedo boats. I recommend testing it out, seeing which one works best for you, and going with what works best for you. Okay? So, in short, you're only going to use command as either a primary or secondary when you are using a mix of torpedoes and energy weapons, and usually only ships that are primarily focused on doing torpedo damage, as this ship that I'm using here, that I'm showing here, are going to really benefit from it because there's so many expose effects and things that benefit torpedoes. Okay? And remember, if you are going to use it as primary, you will get Achilles Heel. If you're going to use it as secondary, you will not get Achilles Heel. You will still benefit from the Tier 1 expose and exploit effects from the command tree. Alright, so this has been Teacher's Corner. You can hear Teacher's Corner featured live on the Pilot Review Show every Sunday, and I hope to see you there.